So this is a Cat 299D2 prefix FD2 skid steer. You ask, why don't I just pull the fuel tank, raise the cab, pull the fuel tank, get to the starter? Alright, so obviously I'm going to just take it that you didn't know what I was working on, so I'm making this video to answer your statement, not your question. The hydraulic tank's right here. It'd be pointless to pull the hydraulic tank. Right behind the accumulator there is where the DPS sits, behind the firewall on top of the engine. You got your hydraulic pumps. Even if we pulled this hydraulic tank, it would still not gain us any access to the starter. So as we walk around to the back side, you say pull the fuel tank. The fuel tank is here and under the engine. That would be crazy to pull the fuel tank. And I could see a 17, 18, 19-year-old technician just getting started, seen your comment, and their boss comes out 6 hours later and they got the engine sitting out on the ground and the fuel tank out for a starter. So that was really misjudgment call, I guess. I guess you probably thought I was working on a John Deere or a Bobcat or something, I don't know. To get the starter off, you'll pull your fan cover off, which is there for all your belts. Pull your intake pipe off. You'll have two sensors on the back side of your intake pipes, one of your air filter. Pull them off, slide it off your turbo, pull all that off. Then you come down here and you pull your crankcase breather off. You'll have two lines on the back side of it. Pull one bolt out right here, pull your battery out, and then you can set your crankcase filter out. Then your starter is back in the hole there. You got about an inch to the right of your starter, and it hits the fuel tank. And then on the top side is your EGR cooler. It's about 2 inches above the starter, so you really don't have any access to work on the starter. So in order to get to the power wires on it, I had to pull the battery cable out and the crankcase breather out, and then I set the battery back in there and hooked the cables up so we could check harnesses. And this ended up being the issue, and I'll address that here shortly. So I'm probably one of the most down-to-earth guys that you'll meet either on here or in person. I know I'm not smart, and I know I'm not the greatest welder in the world. I know I'm not the greatest technician in the world, or mechanic, whatever you want to call it. But I have a passion at what I do, and I like getting in on projects that we call rabbit trails, and I get really frustrated. But once you get it treed and you get the problem fixed, and it's kind of, I guess, satisfying, like cutting your yard after it gets a little bit tall. You go out there and put stripes in. It's just satisfying to sit back and look. But that being said, I didn't make this video to belittle anybody. I don't believe in that. I didn't do it to be a smart aleck. I was just, the comment looked more like a statement, and it reminded me back when I was working in a shop full of technicians, and somebody would walk up, catch you upside down, folded up and tangled up, trying to fix a problem, and then they would say, well, I'll just do this, and it ain't even got nothing to do with what you was going after. So that being said, no hard feelings or anything. I was just making a video replying back to your statement. On the issue with the skid steer, getting the starter off after I had to dig down to it 2 or 3 times after putting it back together, dig back down, putting it back together, it's not really that bad on those skid steers. You just got tight room or tight spots to get your hands in. You got to take a bunch of stuff off just to even get down there and start testing the starter. The first day we came up here and looked at it, I stripped it down, had the battery back in it, and I was checking my powers and stuff going to the starter. I was getting 12.5 or so to the hot post. My grounds was good coming off the starter, and my key switch power wire, I had like 11.5, 11.8 volts whenever you would turn the key switch on to start the machine. But the only way I could check it, because it was so far back in there, was I was coming through the back side of the harness. So my probe was touching the terminal on the back side. So that's what led me to say, well, you know, we got something stuck in the starter, the solenoid, or something's hung up in it. And that's why we went after the starter. We pulled the starter off. The post was a little bit corroded. Replaced some nuts on it for your cables. Cleaned the studs up. Tested the starter. Starter's good. Put the starter back on. We thought the corrosion might have been the issue that we was having, just getting bad connection. Put the machine back together, and I did that in hopes that the problem was corrected. Still clicking. You would turn the key switch on, hit the passcode in to start the machine, turn the key over, you'd lose all power to your monitor, machine would shut off, and that was it. So I started checking more grounds. I checked the engine to ground, engine to frame ground. I bypassed the disconnect switch, went straight off the ground on the battery, straight to the frame, checked the grounds on the cab, grounds at the ECMs. It was like I was having a grounding issue, and as soon as you would activate the key switch, it would just lose all power. All the grounds checked out good, so I went back to the starter, tucked the air filter back off, tucked the battery out, the crankcase filter off, put the battery back in it, and just kept power on everything. And what dawned on me was I had enough room where I could kind of jiggle my hand in and check the front side of the solenoid post that the key switch wire was on. I wasn't getting no power. I was getting power right here, but I wasn't getting power on the front side of this terminal. So I pulled this out, left my lead stuck in here. Then I took my alligator clamp and stuck it to my probe, and then went straight to the key switch terminal on the starter, hit the key switch, it fired right up. So this terminal, I don't know if you'll be able to see, it has a ton of corrosion on the inside. And it threw me for a loop because when I first diagnosed it, I was getting power. The starter should have spun over, instead of click. I had the 12 volts needed on the hot post, 12.2, 12.5. I had 11.5, 11.8 whenever I hit the key switch right here. Everything pointed toward the starter. I overlooked it. Like I said, I'm not the greatest mechanic, so this little guy fooled me. Either way, we got it going. They're out here running it, and a little 15-cent connector shut this whole job down. But it's one of those things. They don't train you this kind of stuff. It's usually hands-on in the field, and you're doing diagnostics and chasing wires and stuff. And hopefully, if you don't get frustrated to hang it up, you'll get it treed. We put a new terminal on it. They had a ton of electrical issues going on with this machine. It would come and go. It's just real sporadic. You'd always have to put in the security code every time you turn the key off. Even when you hit the button to say bypass security for an hour, you would still have to put it in. They'd be operating it, security code pop up. They'd have to punch it in. Now, after we corrected this issue, entering the security codes and all that stuff, you don't have to constantly keep putting it in. Hopefully this will address all their other electrical issues. Either way, we appreciate y'all watching, and like I said, just stay humble and always be open for opinions, and that's it. Thank y'all so much for watching.